Hi, my name is Alyssa. My question to the class is, do any of you have relatives or know people who served in World War II? If so, you may have heard stories like I have. I interviewed my 87-year-old grandmother, Ethel Wolfel. As always, she has many stories. The most interesting fact I heard from her is something I will tell you guys. World War II was the largest war in history. The war was fought between the Allied and the Axis powers. The Axis powers were Germany, Italy, and Japan. The Allies were France, Great Britain, Soviet Union, the United States, and we also had some help from China. According to the Britannica Encyclopedia, there were between 40 million and 50 million deaths, making this the bloodiest war in history. The war all started with Adolf Hitler. He became the Chancellor of Germany on January 30th, 1933. He was well known for leading the Nazi regime. The Nazis collected everyone Hitler did not want polluting his Aryan race he was trying to form. His goal was to have the perfect race. The perfect race did not include homosexuals, Jewish faith, and people with mental disabilities. The beginning of his plan started with rounding up the Jews and sending them off to the concentration camps. Families were split apart and sent to different camps. The camps were full of disease because of the dead bodies. The people lacked the proper nutrition because of the lack of food to go around, and the conditions of the camp were unsanitary. The Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941. President Roosevelt did not declare war on Japan until the day after the attack. The United States remained at war until 1945. Japan ended up surrendering to us. During my interview, I found out how life was like. My grandmother was only about 12 when the war started going on. She explained how she did not fully understand what was going on because she was so young. She fully understood when her brother enlisted in the Air Force. This was the time that they were drafting young men to war. Category 4F was the only way you were not able to go to war. 4F meant you were physically unable to go to war. The day Pearl Harbor was attacked, she remembered hearing President Roosevelt over the radio and explain what had happened. When the U.S. became involved in the war, there were air raids and blackouts. When this occurred, she told me that they had to duck and cover. They also had to put black things in the windows so no light could come in at all. She explained how the only form of communication to the soldiers was letters. If there was a death of your loved one, you usually received a telegram. Her one distinct memory was in 6th grade when they kept making the map larger because Germany was overtaking the surrounding countries because of Hitler's doing. In her community, she was a Girl Scout. One of her jobs in her community was to man the phones. At home, there was no such thing as a TV or a telephone. Her family and her listened to the radio and information what was going on. The only information that they were disclosed with was when the U.S. was defeated. They did not disclose much information. As I said before, her brother, my great-uncle Bob, was in the war. He was in the South Pacific for most of the time. He was not allowed to disclose where he was. Even some of his letters were censored and ripped when they received them because they didn't want anyone to know where he was. Before he left for war, he had left behind a key to secretly disclose where he was, or where he was close to. My granny said he wrote Pennsylvania different ways. There was no such thing as a zip code at this time. He wrote Pennsylvania in different ways. He either wrote PA, PENNA, or different forms of PA. That way, before he left a key, and the key said which abbreviation, what it meant. So it basically gave the family an idea of where he was and his whereabouts, even though he was not allowed to disclose that information. After interviewing my grandmother, it gave me a better idea of how life was during World War II and how scary it was to live while the war was over. Finally, communities changed around the world. People were forced out of their homes, you lived in fear day to day, and you lost loved ones. The World War demonstrated what one man could do with total power and nobody to take a stand against him without dying. Our involvement of the war led to success of distributing power, the Axis powers. A quote by Joe Backup. Pearl Harbor caused our nation to wholeheartedly commit to winning the World War II, changing the course of our nation's history and the world's future. Thank you.